brief introduction for those who are new. So our Sitecore user group Baltics was founded like almost 3 years ago with sharing community knowledge about the latest and greatest offerings of Sitecore, and also get to know the community as well. And please do follow us on our LinkedIn, Facebook, as well as Meetup and YouTube as well. YouTube is where we are uploading all our videos of this meetup. And please do subscribe them and to get your notifications if something new will be uploaded. Okay, so I'll introduce the agenda first. So this is our welcome and introductions happening. And then our speaker, Artsem Prashkovich, will speak about the interesting topic on the newest offering from Sitecore, XM Cloud. And a few of the people or few of the community members are actually working on this XM Cloud project, not on a trial base, but also get it to the client to get it a production ready. So as early, I would say, as possible, we are trying to get the dev experience on working with XM Cloud. And I would like to thank Artsem Prashkovich for this excellent topic. And then after that, we will have a Q&A session and then a small energizer session, and then we will be closing out today. And yeah, a small intro about our experienced speaker. I would say a friend of Sitecore user group Baltics. He was with us last time in our other meetups as well. And he is a solution architect, 5-time Sitecore MVP, over, I would say, a decade of experience with Sitecore and even more with the .NET. And also, he is a trained Agile Master as well, certified. And without much delay, I would hand over to Artem for his interesting topic, and hope we will enjoy this session. Artem,
thank you. Okay. I will take a control of the screen. Okay, let me know if you see my screen.
Yep.
Okay. So, hello everybody, and as it just was mentioned, this is the second my presentation on the Sitecore user group Baltics, and thank you very much that having me again, and I'm pretty happy to see all of you here. And so yeah, today I will talk about especially my dev experience with XM Cloud, and share some knowledge how I have actually moved one of our projects to the XM Cloud. So first of all, a few words about me. So there was a pretty well introduction of myself before, but I don't even know what to add. So yep, as it was said, I took a position of solution architect, and I work for Brimit actually. So already have more than 10 years Sitecore experience, and yep. So the introduction was pretty detailed. So even nothing else to talk here. And one more important slide from my side. This is a few links that I would like to share with you guys. And from my point of view, this is a very important article that we have to go through if you want to start working with XM Cloud. That's something that will provide you much information and much knowledge, and that you need to start do something with XM Cloud. One more reason why I put that links here is that I built my presentation based on some points from the documentation, and I was actually grab all dev experience related stuff from the documentation that I saw, that I just considering as much important for us to know, and put it in my presentation. So that's kind of a disclaimer for my presentation as well. So, and starting from this point, we can switch to the presentation itself. And first of all, the definition of XM Cloud, or in other words, this is a Sitecore Experience Manager Cloud, which is a cloud-native modern CMS that enables brands to create, manage, and deliver content to the customers in fast speed. At the same time, this is represent the transition of Sitecore's primary content management solution to the modern cloud architecture, which is actually the SaaS platform. Why we might be interested to move our project to the XM Cloud, and there is a few points that we can look at, and some of them are just based and go from the origin of the Sitecore XM Cloud, which is Kubernetes-based solution, and some advantages like always on, some the scalability and security. All this stuff comes from the Kubernetes, because Kubernetes provides pretty high availability for the projects running there, so that it is built and designed itself to be easily scaled up and scaled down depending on your needs, and even depending on your load of the instance. Security is an option here because Sitecore Experience Manager and XM Cloud actually run based on the Microsoft Azure Kubernetes services, and in that case, Azure itself is responsible for the security of your cluster. So another advantage of the XM Cloud that it has inbound pipelines for build and deliver your changes and updates to your solution automatically. You can just push your code to the repository, and it will automatically rise the deployment and build, and you don't need even touch your IT team and ask them to deploy something new or some latest changes. Doesn't matter. That will happen out of the box with some exceptions, but we will talk a bit later about that exceptions. So flexible pricing. So as a customer of XM Cloud, you don't need to commit in some tier at the beginning. So all your price will be calculated based on the traffic that you and visits that you have on your website at the end of the year. So if you have not so much traffic on your website, you will be definitely pay the less. And of course, if you have a lot, we need to be ready to pay more, but that there is not require any commitment at the beginning. In the interoperability, that actually means that XM Cloud have a list of APIs that are available out of the box, and even this is a GraphQL endpoint, some endpoints from XM Cloud itself. So, and we can use them to integrate it with existing services and existing applications that you want to connect with the cloud. So out of the box, running our XM Cloud instance, we have the list of services and technologies available. And first of all, and which is new for us, this is Sitecore Unified Identity, which is SSO service, let's say, which is used across of all composable DXP tools and systems provided by Sitecore. So you can log into your XM Cloud instance with the same account, with the same Sitecore account that you can log in everywhere and in the Sitecore world. So again, once XM Cloud is designed as a headless system, it includes all headless stuff available in Sitecore at the moment, which is SXA itself is a headless functionality. So it is GSS, then it is headless management, layout services also available for us, sure. So in running your solution in XM Cloud, you will be able, and you will store, and it is already built out of the box, you will store your media in the blob storage. So experience H is used as a content delivery mechanism. So that's XM Cloud does not have the content delivery server at all. All content is published to the H. So personalization can be built using CDP, which is also available, but that's optional. And as I said before, it has inbound CI/CD processes, so you can deploy your changes on the XM Cloud. And so for local development, it has like a template that you can use to run your local environment and start working with the solution, which will be compatible with XM Cloud. And the last point here is that automatic updates, which means that all changes that Sitecore do on their side, so even on the Sitecore itself, on the deployments and on the clusters, it will be automatically roll out on your instance without your attention at that point at all. Next thing that I'm going to share is the XM Cloud architecture. And here, let me see. Okay, so we have a developer and the GitHub, which is always that's nothing interesting here. Then we have like an overall of on top of the all infrastructure showing on that image, we have the XM Cloud, and XM Cloud have the Kubernetes cluster, let's say, where we have our Sitecore XM instance running with experience editor pages and all advantages and all tools that we have with our XM Cloud. We also can see that we have an editing host here, which is usually the copy of our rendering host application, but that editing host deployed within the XM Cloud changes, and it is used for preview or for experience editor or even for the pages. So this is the same app, editing host, and Node.js, or not only Node.js based rendering app. Is still the same, but deployed in separate way. So we also can use our main rendering host as an editing host, but that require additional configuration on our XM instance. It will not work out of the box, but it is still possible. We can also see that our changes is not published to the web database. It is always published to the H, and the H itself, it is we can consider it as a CDN system, which have the own level of cache. So, and it provides the GraphQL endpoint that is usually, and so that which is provided for us for our connection between our next Node.js based hosting, Node.js based application, rendering host application with our Sitecore instance. So all communication goes through the H. And from the left side, there is a build and deploy services, which I was talking about before. And so one more important thing here that it works only with GitHub. So and all continuous integration here happens only when you store your source code in GitHub. And once you gonna store it somewhere else, you have to build your own pipelines just to execute deployments and builds, or at least initiate them. So on the next slide, we can see the common structure of XM and the environments in XM Cloud. And on top of all of them, we have the organization, which is usually means that the logically separated for account of the Sitecore I mean, this Sitecore client has a separate organization, or at least can be separated by a level of user management and so on. So the next level is the project, and on the screen we can see that we have, for example, two projects, and if projects, each of them is a separate software, separate solution, that probably considered as a separate projects in terms inside of the XM Cloud, and each project can have a number of environments running there, and it is under our control how many and which environments you want to have here. So that can be only one, it can be I don't know, 5, 6, 7, doesn't matter. So from the XM Cloud point of view, so we can deploy any number of environments if you want. So once you decided to work with XM Cloud, so maybe you have a team that gonna work with XM Cloud and deploys the custom solution there. So then we need to remember that our team have to be prepared for that. And from the left side, we can see a list of tiers of technologies that we need to be familiar with in terms of deploying and working on the XM Cloud project. So for sure that should be the SXA, because XM Cloud uses SXA to build their site structure and organize the content. Even you can use the whole advantages of SXA with partial designs, page designs, and so on. But at least if you want to build your project in a way for further deployment them to the XM Cloud, it is better to use SXA, at least for the site management. GSS and headless, this seems like very close to each other. So, and you for sure have experience work with headless applications, because XM Cloud is completely headless. Important tile here also the containers, because it is highly recommended to work with containers locally. Even you can install your Sitecore instance on your local. The way which is containers, which is XM Cloud build the code, is pretty the same as it built for Docker instance that you run locally. So, and if you work with containers locally, you will be able to identify some issues on the early. So then that issues will not come to the XM Cloud build process at all. So Sitecore serialization, because this is default serialization mechanism for XM Cloud, and age, which is experience age, or it also can be represented by GraphQL API running in Sitecore within the headless services. All that API, all that endpoints, experience age or GraphQL API are used by our rendering host to communicate with Sitecore out of the box. So once you are familiar with all of the technologies, I think you will not face any issues in terms of development on your XM Cloud project. Pretty common diagram describing the development flow in terms of the headless projects. And not only XM Cloud, to be honest. So it is pretty common for each headless project. And we can see that business stakeholders, business analyst or project owner, as well as a designer, start working a bit early. Then the whole team start put some input, just do some input to the project. Of course, because of designs, wireframes, requirements need to come before we start the project. Unfortunately, that's not always happen, but it should be. And then we can see the second, after we have some requirements and we understand what we need to do, so solution architect and backend devs start their work on the project. And they do start, ideally, they should start do the work a bit early than front-end team involved to the project, because front-end team always requires some endpoints and some data already available inside core just to start building the components. So that always good when dev team goes in a bit ahead of the front-end team. Then we can, as usually, front-end team has much more work to do on the project comparing with the front end, comparing with the back end. I'm just talking about a pretty standard project with components without any custom integrations on the backend side. Of course, when we will have like 10 custom integrations, some payments already on the front end side, but Sitecore extensions, I don't know, any integration that had to be done on the backend, of course, then the time that we need some backend developers involved in the project will be increased. But in pretty standard component-based solution, front-end work is a bit front-end team has more work than backend. It doesn't mean that once the components already done on the backend side that we don't need them anymore. So time to time, backend teams still will be required to fix some models, I mean templates, maybe add some fields, remove maybe unnecessary fields. That pretty depends how detailed documentation you have, and yeah, that depends on the different situations. But of course, backend teams still need to be available just to support front-end work. So the main idea that for headless we need more front-end developers than usually more front-end developers than backends. Once we work with our project locally, and that project need to be and that project is built for XM Cloud locally, we have two options to work. And especially for front-end devs, it is better and easy to use H mode, which means that front-end developer just connect to our XM Cloud instance and get data from there. So then it means that they don't need to run Docker instance on their local, which allows them to save a lot of resources. Because if you're gonna to run Docker with Sitecore locally, it requires a lot of memory and the CPU resources for builds and so on and so on. And once we have an option to don't run it locally, so that's for sure the best option to do. For rendering host, it is just standard Next.js, Vue.js, or other type of Node.js based rendering hosts, and it can be easily connected to any Sitecore instance running somewhere in the cloud or even on premise, doesn't matter. For backend developers, there is a fully local mode that will be required to be to run Sitecore in Docker, and all that include the editing host as well as the rendering host. But they can be it is the rendering host again can be executed as editing host, as I said a bit early. We have Solars, SQL, server, all that stuff that we have with our Sitecore for each our Sitecore instance. There is nothing new. So when you start working on the project and you consider that, or you think that you will move it to the containers or to the XM Cloud in the future, it is better to follow some recommendations that will allow you to easily move it to the XM Cloud in the future. And first of all, it is better to use latest Sitecore version, the version of Sitecore XM at least. But anyway, that point is it works for any instance, not only for the XM Cloud. It is always better to use the latest version, which makes it easy to update in the future. So XM SXA installed, which means it is at least better to use SXA for build your content structure and the site structure. I mean, to use the SXA headless tenants and SXA sites. This is how it actually built in XM Cloud. Once you have the structure of the content, of your templates and your sites built in the same way as it is done in the cloud, it for sure will be easy then to move it to the cloud, your custom solution. It will be easy to move your custom solution to the cloud anyway. Of course, it is Next.js. It is the slide talks about the Next.js, and for sure that is related to any rendering host. It should work with Experience Age. And if Experience Age it is something which is run somewhere inside core world in the cloud, locally you can work with the equivalent to the equal GraphQL endpoint, also called as a H. So once you work with that, and this is the endpoint that is used by JSS by default, then in the future when you will deploy your project to the XM Cloud, it will become working out of the box without any customizations. Because maybe some time ago, the main endpoint was like a layout service, and only with the a few latest releases, GSS, the JavaScript GSS apps are switched to work with the agent point. So then you should use the Sitecore serialization by CLA, Sitecore CLA. That's the recommendation probably. I like it, at least I like the Sitecore content serialization, and it works pretty fine, and it is provide the all required level of the flexibility. I don't see any issues here. It is just always better to use something not provided by out of the box. The next very important point is the build tool that you can use with your project, and it is better, and it is actually only one way how you can build your project if you want to run it in XM Cloud. It is use MS Build, because any tools like Gulp, Cake, PowerShell builds that will not work when you will try to deploy your project to the XM Cloud. And in XM Cloud only use MS Build, and that's it. So you need to build your dependencies. Maybe again, I will explain it a bit later on during the demo how I have actually built my project and restructured my project to make it working on XM Cloud. So, but keep it in mind that MS Build is only one way to build a project for XM Cloud. Oops, sorry. Also, we need to try keep our content manager as default as possible. So any customization can provide more difficulties in terms of moving into the XM Cloud. For sure, you can still deploy custom code, custom configs. You can override any files that Sitecore has, but for example, in terms of the search and indexing stuff, that's kind of difficult to customize, and you always also need to think about that. So it is content manager or our Sitecore content management system should be kept only for the content. So everything else need to be done a separate way. And this is especially for the next point. And actually putting that point here, I thought about the integrations and the responsibilities of the system for our headless architecture. So we as backend developers used to use the Sitecore as a backend system and build everything on every integration on the Sitecore backend side. But with headless, we need to change our minds, because with the headless, Sitecore becomes like only the content management system. So all integrations with third-party systems need to be done from front-end side. So if it's possible, it can be integrations one-to-one. So I don't know. So maybe just in case Algolia Search, this is a search provider that pretty good match to the Sitecore requirements for the Sitecore project, and it has some own JavaScript integrations, libraries that and modules that you can just pull to your project and work with that directly. For some maybe third-party systems that is not maybe safe or require some additional configuration, sometimes you maybe need to build some API middleware. So, but it is no make any sense to pass requests through the Sitecore instance just to do that integration. So all integrations need to be done on the front end side, and we need to keep them separately from Sitecore. Sitecore is only for content, and for sure for presentation management. And as I said before, so it is always better to use Docker for local development just to follow the whole approach in terms of the build the project. Now, a few slides about the recommended practices from my point of view and why it is recommended, because time to time it can be built differently. It is good if you can follow that practices, but if it is required on other decisions, for sure it can be done so, because it is not like even the best, it is recommended. And first of all, if you don't want to spend more time for CI/CD, so to build more time to build your CI/CD processes, then it is better to choose the GitHub as your source control provider. Then you will be able to use all advantages and take advantage of the built-in integrations with the XM Cloud. And so again, this is short time when we see that we need to use Docker locally. Seems like very important. And again, it is better to use Sitecore serialization items just to follow the common approach. Sitecore has official template that you can easily search with the XM Cloud Foundation head key. And this template of the project, which includes like a front end and back end part that you can use to facilitate the original creation of the code base. So this is actually the template used by Sitecore when you populate and provision in your XM Cloud. If you will build your project based on the same, so it means that you will be easily again to deploy it to XM Cloud. Again, it is for front-end developers, it is easy and better to connect to the existing XM Cloud services that will allow you to get the latest changes from backend team much faster than as fast as possible, because you don't need to build your local instance. You don't need to wait once something pushed. You just wait while backend developer said, so, okay, everything is deployed, and that becomes available for front-end team immediately. The next point is pretty common for each Sitecore project, and I highly recommend to follow that. So don't add any templates, change fields in the components definition on the cloud instance, or let's say on the production servers. So always better to make the 10 changes on the code base, serialize them and push to the cloud or whatever, whenever you want. So, and then you will have that serialized, and you can keep that under the source control. So, and you will be you will okay, and you will be sure that your changes will not be override by another developer, and it will not broke anything. And the last recommended practice from development point of view is to use the PowerShell scripts provided by Sitecore within the same XM Cloud Foundation head. There is a token especially for the PowerShell scripts for running your Docker instance locally. There are three PowerShell scripts. One of them is initialize your local environment variables. Second script is used to run your instance, and the last one is used to shut down your Sitecore Docker instance locally. And there is only one reason why you need to use them is that solves a lot of, and probably at least all known issues to run Docker locally. So when using them, you can at least save your time just to spend some, and don't spend that time for troubleshooting and investigation the issues. The next one is the recommended practices for the project structure. So components need to be built in a way that keeps them independent, modular, and interchangeable. So content authors remain free to move components around the page however they want. So this is again collected with a second point is the structure of components and naming of the components in Sitecore side should be the same with the, not only the same, but it should be similar with the naming of the components on the front end side in the component based. So then it will provide more not flexibility, so that onboarding of new developers on the project will be faster, because once new developer comes and he know where the component are placed in the Sitecore, it is much easier to find them that components on the front end part, which makes it much more easy. So you don't need to spend time to just find some obvious things, and probably that it is why we want to do that, just to keep that naming similar way. From the JavaScript side, you can create any number of components you want. Even you can separate them to the smaller one just to avoid some code duplication. But at the end, you just need to export only components that will be export from the build. I mean, from the build point of view, just export the components that will be used by content authors finally. So, and the last point here is again very common for each Sitecore project, and it saying that we need to avoid the hard coding of layout in our code. So that all stuff need to be under the control of the content authors as well. And so the last slide for the presentation before we will switch to the demo is about the deployment itself. So, and as I said before, if we use GitHub, we can utilize the default CI/CD tool and the inbound default CI/CD tool provided by with XMCloud, or we can, in some reason, implement our own CI/CD pipelines. So, if you want to save development time setting up own pipelines, or you want to get the latest improvements from the CI/CD process from Sitecore, then utilize out of the box CI/CD tool provided by Sitecore. But if you, again, and it will work only with GitHub. So if you don't use GitHub as a source control provider, you cannot use it. So then you need to, so you cannot use the default tools. So then you need to implement your own as well. If you have already implemented CI/CD pipelines for another project or another part of the project, and you want to keep your all deployments in the same way, so this is why you probably need to invest some time to implement your own pipelines. Again, if you have a lot of sites, probably multi-site setup or multi-cloud setup, you need to be able, and you need to implement your pipelines as well, and as well as the different production environments running in different instances of XM Cloud. That's the case when you will not be able to use one tool to deploy to the separate instances. And maybe one more point here that I haven't mentioned on the slide is the security reason, because once you use GitHub and you want to use the CI/CD tools provided by Sitecore, you have to provide the full control for your GitHub account. So that sometimes can be a problem for enterprise level client. So you cannot provide like an access only for one repository inside of your GitHub account. So that should be the full access available for XM Cloud to your GitHub. So in that moment, let's switch to the demo. We have like 15 minutes, and I think we should manage that. Okay, let's first of all let's meet the XM Cloud itself, Portal Sitecore Cloud. Okay. So this is a homepage of our XM Cloud portal, and now let's switch to the projects that we have right now. Why it is so slow? Okay. Manage my projects again. Okay. Let's imagine that we need to create a new project, and there is two options that we have for creating actually the project. We can do that from the starter template, or we can select some existing repository from our source control, which can be only GitHub. And let's see what we can do if we want to create it from scratch. We have only one template, which is SXA based template. Then we have to specify the name of the project. I have that project already with that name. I will just, for example, add 2, and then okay, there is like a repository options that the repository we need to choose our source control system. For now, it is only GitHub. Nothing here. Select the connection. If you do that first time, you will be requested to log into the GitHub and provide the. Actually, it is saying here that you need to all repositories access to work with that. Repository name again. So demo. Okay, demo 3 doesn't matter. So this is not live test step. Then we specify the name of environment, for example, dev, specifying if it's environment, production environment or not, and if you want to deploy or trigger deployment on the commit to the branch. There is only 2 options, yes or no. For now, I don't want. Once I will click create and deploy, it will execute the build and the provisioning of the environment. And I will not do that for now because it can take like 15 minutes. But at the end of the process, you will see like that kind of messages that it was provisioning, build, deployed, and some post actions was executed. So it no makes sense just to wait and see how it will go. So it is just a waste of time. I have done it for us before, and I have dev environment here, and it is pretty clean. And this is the example of environment that you will get once you will run the deployment on the previous stage. Let's have a look what we have here on the out of the box. Okay, and let's look at the content tree. And we can see that we don't have any sites here. We don't have any projects, and we have only SXA and JSS installed here out of the box. So what if we want to create a new site? We also have two options. We can do that from template, and we can do that. There is when we just click on the icons, which is usually open the launchpad. So this opens the actual launchpad, but with some settings, and the new tab allowing us to add a new website. We can create an empty website, or we can create a website based on with some content added there. Site, let's call it demo. Only one language, English, is available, and create website. At that time, there is site provisioning happening, and this is pretty standard process, which is usually happen when you create a new website using the SXA. So it adds templates and media folders. It adds the rendering folder, project folders everywhere, and it adds the content tree with some predefined content and pages and presentation for them. So should be done pretty fast, at least 2 minutes, but usually it is faster. And once it is loading, let's have a look what we have in the repository. So this is our code that we got once we create a new project in XM Cloud. It creates a new repository and push the code of that repository, of that instance, to this repository. So we can pull it when we need. Okay, and I will pull it to this folder. This is in progress. It is done. So this is actually our project, and I want to check if the site is populated, right? So we have site deployed, and if we will back to our content editor, we have it only here. Oh, we have here the website with a few pages. That's completely standard SXA site, so it looks like standard at least. And so we have already some variants for components, which becomes like a new feature for SXA, headless SXA. It comes with the latest release. We have page designs, we have partial designs here, and it is pretty good example for your custom site that you want to build actually, or even you can build it based on that structure. Okay, but right now that content exists only on XM Cloud, and working locally, I will not be able to use that content, and you cannot extend it and do something custom with that. So then I want to pull it to my local, and let's imagine I have my solution already on my local, and I work with that, and I want to pull the content from the XM Cloud, and Sitecore CL Live latest version allow me to communicate with the XM Cloud. What I need just do first, I need to open a new PowerShell from my repository root folder, and first of all, we need to do the restore .net tool restore. Okay, it was restored, and net Sitecore. Sorry, Sitecore. Cloud login. So in that case, right now it is installing the Sitecore CLI packages or plugins to work with our cloud system. It is takes some time in some reason. Usually it is faster. Let me have a look a bit. Sitecore. Okay, I have that packages added before. I will just copy them from the another folder just to save the time for us. Okay, so now it should work. So there is some key, which is we should see the same here, but usually we trust what we do and select the organization. So once we are done with login, we will see the user available here. And if you want to do some serialization, to upload some serialization content or push the content to our instance, we have to set it allow write to the true. Even if you want just read, we need to set it true here. So we have logged in, and what we need to do next. Okay, Sitecore CLI allow us to do some commands, and first of all, we can get the list of the projects because we need to know our project ID to communicate and work with. So then we have environments, which is only dev for now. And if I want to get a list of the environments that I have, I need to execute the environment list command and provide the project ID that which we can copy from here. So as a result, we can see that we have only one environment, which is dev. And again, this is important to have this environment ID. And what I want to do next, I want to connect to the environment. And it is required to proceed some serialization. And at least when we connect, we need to connect once. It will add some configuration locally, and after that we can always work with that without that environment connect command running in advance. So connecting to the environment, let's see what we have here again. Okay, we can see that we add a new environment, which is dev. Again, we need set to here true. It allows us to communicate with the environment. So right now we're available and able to work with our remote instance. But there is one thing that I need to do in advance is that update my rendering module. I have prepared it for us in advance just to don't spend time for sterilization stuff. Just add a few rules which content I want to pull from my instance, remote instance. This is content, templates, media, placeholder settings, and renderings. This is actually everything which is added by SXA when we create a new website. And probably that's it. Right now, I just need to pull content.net Sitecore serialization pull, and one different here that we need to specify the environment, which is n, and let's say def. So right now we will pull the content from our remote instance. So that's actually in the same way we can do push. So if you have changed something on local, and otherwise we don't pull, we just do push. So the content will become available on our remote instance. So the last thing that we will do with our XM Cloud, we will create a new environment. I have prepared the command for that, and there is a Sitecore Cloud environment create with the project ID. Project ID is that one. And let's create a prod. Okay, so we have added a new environment. Not added yet, but will be in a few seconds. No? Okay, no, it was not executed. Okay, now if we will back to our project, we will see that we have new environment here for prod, and but no deployments was executed yet. Before I will execute the deployment, I want to update XM Cloud build file. It is actually the main configuration for our XM Cloud builds. I also prepared it for us. I have added a few sections. The first one is deployed items. This is the list of modules that we want to be serialized when we push our content, push our code to the XM Cloud. I have only one configuration, which is rendering host, and I just put it an exact name of the module, but you can be and you're actually able to use asterisks here for wildcards, and you can pull modules to here dynamically. There is transforms, so this is the object where you specify your target config, like web config, and your XDT file that you want to be applied for the web config. So this is in terms of if you need to customize some your Sitecore instance and you need to some changes on running on your web config. That's the way how you should do that. And also there is a build targets. There is a list of lines, which is the string objects with the path to the projects that you want to build. In my case, there is only one project called platform that I want to build. Actually, it does not have any code changes right now. So I have to push it to my new instance, and I think I can perform the deployment right now. Once we have created a new environment, we was actually suggested to use the second command to execute the deployment. So, but in that case, we have a deployment which will just populate a pretty standard project and the environment that we saw when we created that environment from the visual interface or from the admin panel, XM Cloud admin panel. But if you want to push our custom code and our content there, we need to add new parameter here, which is upload, which means that you will be upload your solution to the XM Cloud. Let's see. If it goes or not. Okay, deployment started. It can take some time, so I will switch. I see that I have overtime already, but I will try pretty quick and maybe 5 minutes explain what they have done to run my custom project in XM Cloud. Sorry for delay.
Please continue. It is an important step, right? So
Okay. So I have XM Cloud. So I had a project which I was built with my team like a year ago, and that was built based on the Sitecore XM 10.2. It was run locally in Docker. It was run in production in Kubernetes. So it was using SXA to just to manage the sites. I haven't used the partial designs, page designs for my project, but I use the SXA to be able to manage sites from the site core itself, to create new sites, to actually add new sites, do some clone of the site. So that was a reason why I use SXA for the project. It was using GSS 19, and and it was the rendering part was built based on the Next.js application. And of course, we was use the Sitecore content serialization as our serializing system. And of course, it was used Helix, and that's and run Kubernetes as I said before. There is a few things that I had to change to manage it run in Kubernetes or in XM Cloud. And the first of all, I had to update my references. So we can see that instead of Sitecore kernel, there is become like Sitecore XM Cloud kernel, which is we have that equivalent assembly for each Sitecore assembly that we was used before. So you can see that almost all of have XM Cloud version, but some of them still not. But that was not a problem. Actually, when we build the project, we publish only the custom assemblies without any Sitecore related assemblies. That the rule that we always usually need to follow. I try to keep my final bundle with my artifacts, including only the custom assemblies, not the assemblies provided by Sitecore. So even I have run it, even we have some non-XM Cloud assemblies here that was working pretty fine with XM Cloud as well. So so there is only a few of them which is used standard Sitecore version. With XM Cloud, we have the version 1, so that's not Sitecore 10 and so on. That there is only the naming of the assemblies and the versioning of the assemblies is different. So once we have updated it, of course, we need to update the references in each project. Let me move another unnecessary window. That's not another. So I need. Okay, sorry, I need that one. So if you will open, I don't know, maybe that project. Okay, so we also need to update the references here. That probably makes sense to do that with maybe some replacement tool or with replace functionality of Notepad, for example. That can be done pretty quicker. The next thing that I had to do, I had to change the way how I build the project. So before I tried to move it to the XM Cloud, I was use one project which was referencing automatically each project's each Helix project. I mean, there was a rule to automatically add to the reference all projects which starts with or include which name includes the feature, foundation, or project. So that was a way how I have published them. Once I have a project which is referenced to everyone, I can just publish one, and it includes all projects that are referenced. But in that case, it works pretty fine for Docker. It was pretty fine for Kubernetes builds, but it was not working with XMCloud, because when I was build that project in XMCloud, it was include only one assembly of that project itself. So that was not work for me, and only one way. There was two way how I was able to fix that, and this is, and the first of them was let me open the file. Yes, this is the build targets. So you can specify each project here, which seems like not very optimized way to do that. So that was not for me, and I was try to find another way how to do that. And another way was to change, to extend or even update my projects as cproj files actually with some extra data. And for example, let's back to the navigation project again. First of all, I have added a new section. Auto, yeah. So there is auto publish property and auto publish target. So there is a property group which allows me to proceed the publish automatically when I build the project. So then once it is built, it is become like in an artifacts folder. So to the deployed folder, it comes, the changes comes to the deployment folder, which is I have specified for publishing, for local publishing profile. Yeah, once the project is published, the code goes, the result of the build goes to the Docker deploy platform folder, which is the folder of with all the folder where all projects will be built. And the last thing that I have added, this is targets file, which can be used and which is usually used to filter the results of build or otherwise include something to the build. But in my case, it is only filtering. I exclude all Sitecore related assemblies from my build results. So once I don't want to deploy them, just don't increase the package size and so on and so on. I'm just exclude everything which is unrequired and shouldn't be deployed actually. That three things, auto publish, targets, and local publish profile allows me to run build in proper way in XMCloud. So in that way, when I'm just build solution file, it execute the build of each project, and each project itself have auto publish, which push items in the right direction. So that was a second thing that I had to do in terms of the deployments to the XMCloud. So, and probably last thing, okay, not the last. The next thing that I had to change, it is the version of plugins that is used with my project. The new version is like 5.0.16, but before it was, if I remember, it was version 4. And one more plugin is added for XMCloud. This is the second. This is the second thing, and the last is to add XMCloud build file, actually JSON file, which as it was open before, but let's look at it again. So as it said, we can use the build cards for our items modules, so serialization modules. Actually, I include all foundation feature and project serialization modules to my deployment. I build solution file, and I specify the way and the path to my Next.js app. It is required for rendering host actually, and so that rendering host, it means that that's not really the rendering, that's editing host. And we use that rendering host as, if you remember on the beginning of the presentation, there was editing host, which is used for experience editor and preview. So an extra step for that, you have to deploy, for example, your project to the Vercel or something like that. So, but the rendering host is used by Sitecore itself for experience editing. Okay, and deployment was finished. And let's have a look what we got as a result. Let's connect to the new environment. It seems like it takes some time to be opened the first time. Content editor. So we have, okay, this is our prod environment, where we can see that we have our demo site already deployed within our code. So this is how we can provision in that. And once we have connected, for example, I don't know if we can, and using that environments that we have connect, we always can get content, for example, pull content from prod or from dev and push it to the another environment that allows some flexibility in terms of moving content from one environment to another environment. So you can do that with the PowerShell pretty easy. So I think that's it. I will not take any more time. It takes much more time than I was expected, but thank you for attention, and I'm ready to answer some questions if you have so.
Thank you so much, Artem. It was really, I mean, we don't want to disturb because those are the important stuff what we are, finally want to see in the practical development using XM Cloud. So yeah, and those who have attended, it should be a great learning curve as well. And thank you so much for presenting. And yeah,
You're
definitely we
welcome.
can refer. Yeah. Any questions? Do we have any questions? Do anyone want to ask something? I used to have one questions. I wrote it down, but while demoing, it clarified everything. So that was really good. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So if no questions, yeah, thank you guys. Thank you so much.